Welcome to the Gen X Files. I'm Curtis Lee. Let me get things set up here. Make sure I got the stream actually live first. Let's see if it pops up here where I can hear it. Welcome to everybody that's tuning in. I hope everybody had a good week. Like I said, I'm Curtis Lee. I hope everybody had a good week. Right, let's stop that. All right, cool. I'm going to play a little music here while I'm waiting for people to filter in. Let's see. Like I said, I hope everybody had a good week. I got 3 or 4 things to talk to you guys about tonight. Another Bigfoot sighting in Connecticut, and let's see, some UFO stuff. We'll talk about the UFO stuff that was released last week, and some information that was in that. And I've got some current events kind of stuff. How to build your own trap. Let me get back here where I can watch the chat. I don't need to watch the music. Let me type a message in here, hope. All right. I'll pin that. Like I said, we'll see. All right. Got that done. Now I'm all set up. Like I said, I hope everybody had a good week. I'm Curtis Lee. This is the Gen X Files. Like I said, I've got a few things I'm going to talk to you guys about tonight. Let me get my information up here that I'm going to go through. Like I said, I've got some information that came out in the newest UFO release. Then I've also got a Bigfoot sighting that happened in Connecticut on July 5th. And like I said, I've got a current events thing. I'm not going to completely give that away yet, but like I said, that's kind of a lesson on how to build your own trap. Yeah, like I said, that's kind of a lesson on how to build your own trap. Let's see. I'm not sure if I've got any. Well, hello to anyone tuning in. Like I said, I'm Curtis Lee. Welcome to the Gen X Files. I've got a number of things I'm going to talk to you guys about tonight. Like I said, one of them's going to be Bigfoot, and another one's going to be UFO stuff. Well, I guess I'll go ahead and get right into it. I've always said that sometimes I get people and sometimes I don't. So the show must go on. I'll go ahead and go through what I plan to talk about. So let's get to the first thing. Well, hello, me official love. Good to see you. Good to see you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. Well, I hope you had a good week. I'm Curtis Lee, if you don't know me. I'm a paranormal researcher, retired ghost hunter. So like I said, I had some information I was going to go through with you guys this evening. Let me pull that back up here. I'm kind of waiting for people to trickle in here. Mia official love, I appreciate you being here. Like I said, I never know if people are going to show up. Sometimes I have a whole bunch of people, and sometimes I just have a few. So I appreciate you tuning in. Well, let me get to what I was going. There was some. Well, goodness, I just saw. Oh, that's fine. Well, hello, Bronson Redmond 30. Thank you for the jewels. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for tuning in. Happy poop for 10 jewels. Well, that's funny. Well, I'd seen this jewels thing, but I wasn't really. So that's the thing you do on mobile, right? It's not something you can do on the the regular live stream. Well, that's cool. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Well, let me get to what I was going to tell you guys about. There's some information in this recent UFO report, UFO stuff that come out from the government last week, and I made 2 shorts with 2 of the video clips that I thought were interesting. So those are on the channel page in the short section if you want to look at them. They're pretty easy. They stand out from the rest of the shorts. They say UFO on them, and anyway, so those are 2 of the ones that I thought were more interesting. So I posted those as shorts. Well, let's get into the information. So this 28-year veteran. So it says 28-year veteran report, and it says Pursue Tranche 4. I don't know what that means, but that's what they had the thing titled, so that's what I put it in here as. And it says the witness and it says this case has quickly become a focal point of the July 10th declassification drop because it comes from a highly credible, high-ranking source whose career depended on accurate aerial identification. And it says the witness in context, and it says the source, a seasoned military aviator with 28 years of active flight service. And while the specific identity is still redacted in the public files, their flight logs, credentials, and psychological evaluations were fully vetted before the report was unsealed. And it says the encounter. It says the incident occurred during a routine daytime training flight over a military operations area. And it says the exact coordinates and data are heavily redacted, but cross-reference suggests it happened within the last decade. Let's see, next page. Oops, wrong way. And it says the flight telemetry and visuals. And it says, according to the unsealed document transcript, the pilot was cruising at approximately 15,000 feet when they caught a visual of an object, or on an object. And it says the pilot explicitly noted the object was unlike anything he had ever seen, and in nearly 3 decades of aviation. And it had a matte, non-reflective gray finish, no visible wings, no control surfaces, and absolutely no visible exhaust plume or thermal signature. And it says the movement. The object was behaving in a way that defied standard aerodynamics. And it held a completely static hover in high crosswinds before suddenly executing a sharp right angle turn and accelerating out of the pilot's field of view in a fraction of a second. Well, hello, Stephanie Freeman. Good to see you. What's your question? Well, thank you, Bronson Redmond 30. I appreciate that. Hello, that one guy, DW. Jesus loves you. Well, he loves you too, man. Jesus is a good fellow from what I've heard. I've never heard anybody say anything bad about him anyway. So thank you so much. I forgot where I was at now. The pilot's words. And it says the transcript notes the pilot's frustration with traditional explanations. I know what drones look like. I know what weather balloons look like. And I know what stealth capabilities our adversaries are testing. This did not rely on propulsion as we understand it. So that was something that came out in the UFO stuff. Let's see, there's something. So that was something that came out in the UFO stuff. Let me go look. I had one more. So then also in this information, I asked the AI, I said the timing on this is incredible. It says I asked about Foo Fighters because some of the stuff that's come out recently reminded me of the Foo Fighter. Well, I do hear a few people talk bad about everybody here and there, but there's always those people. My day's going good, Stephanie Freeman. I appreciate that. How's your day going? Hope you had a good week. So like I said, the video and some of the stuff that was in this recent UFO dump reminded me of the Foo Fighter reports from World War II. So I wanted to read this information I got about the Foo Fighters. And it says the timing on this is incredible, because I asked the AI about the Foo Fighters. It says the timing on this is incredible. It says the Foo Fighters, the famous glowing orbs that shattered Allied and Axis pilots during World War II, are actively back in the headlines right now due to a mix of new government data and fresh scientific debate. And this is the Pursue connection, which is the thing I just read you guys. The high-tech Foo Fighters. UFO researchers have been drawing direct historical parallels between the original 1940s Foo Fighters and the newly unsealed military exercise reports from July 10th, 2026 Pursue Tranche 4 drop. And it says the Orange Orbs report from the latest drop describes a swarm of highly maneuverable thermal signature defined glowing spheres that aggressively paced and toyed with modern military helicopters and fighter jets. That was a tongue twister. That was a lot to say. It says in the ufology community, this is being heavily covered as modern proof that the exact same phenomena World War II pilots encountered over Europe and the Pacific, which they described as growing red, white, or orange balls of fire that intelligently mirrored their maneuver without attacking, and is still operating with the exact same behavioral pattern today. And it says the first scientific debate. Let me check. Name me anything. Name anything without the dictionary. God F6B. Name me anything without the omnipotent. That's the best word I can think for somebody that's claiming to be God. That would be omnipotent. That's what popped into my head anyway. So anyway, so like I said, some of this information is bringing up some new debate on the Foo Fighters stuff from World War II and what these pilots were reporting they were seeing back then. Apparently similar to what pilots are seeing now. So maybe there's something up in the upper atmosphere we don't know about. Yeah, Earth's an interesting planet. Maybe something lives up there, but we haven't realized it. Stuff lives at the bottom of the ocean. So why, maybe stuff lives up in the atmosphere. I have no idea. Anyway, it says on July 9th, 2026, just the day before the Pentagon drop, a fascinating new scientific paper injected fresh life into the historical Foo Fighter debate. It says atmospheric chemist John Burks, University of Colorado Boulder, posted a breakthrough preprint paper titled UAP Orbs, Magnetically Confined Dusty Plasmoids Produced by Meteors. And it says the paper is being heavily discussed because it was highlighted by the Harvard astronomer Avi Loeb and the UAP scientist Advisory Council. The breakdown. Brooks analyzed 508 historical and modern orb sightings. He found a mathematically significant correlation between silent floating like orbs and meteor fireballs. And it has the historical twist. Skeptics and atmospheric scientists are using this new 2026 model to argue that the original World War II Foo Fighters might not have been Nazi secret weapons or extraterrestrial craft, but rather a previously unrecognized type of weakly ionized dusty plasma formed when meteoric dust stabilizes in the lower atmosphere. And it says if you want deep history material for your content, pursue the 4 Tranche drop. Also quietly unsealed a cache of historical files with other federal agencies. Most notably, it included internal NASA communications and high-resolution optical film scans from Space Shuttle mission STS-75 1996. And I noticed there's also some audio files on there where they debrief some of the astronauts, and I thought that was interesting. That might be something you guys want to go on there and listen to. I'm not going to go into all that because they're like hours and hours long. Well, hey, Joe Daisy, good to see you. Good to see you. Oh, I didn't know he was doing a live. I'm sorry I missed it. I looked earlier and I didn't see anything on his channel. Well, I'm sorry I missed his live. I didn't know he was doing one tonight. Let's see. And this is during that mission, the famous tether incident occurred where a 12-mile long space tether broke and NASA video captured dozens of massive circular pulsing objects floating around it. While NASA historically claimed these were just nearby ice crystals and debris out of focus, the newly unsealed internal memos reveal a much higher level of internal debate and confusion among the mission specialists at the time than the public was ever led to believe. So anyway, like I said, some of this new information has come out recently that ties back to the Foo Fighter stuff in World War II. So I think that's interesting. That's like I said, if you go to the Department of War, I can't believe it's the Department of War. I just think that's silly. But anyway, if you go to the War Department's UFO page, there's a bunch of new stuff there, and there's 19 videos. Now I did put 2 of them up as shorts. I was going to do a video and go through all of them, but after I looked at them, some of them are kind of boring. So I'm not going to subject y'all to having to sit and listen to me ramble through an hour-long video about UFOs that aren't really nothing to look at. So I'm just going to put the ones that I think are the most interesting up as shorts and just show you the best parts. Save you some time and save me some time too. Oh wow! Well, I didn't know he was doing live. I'm sorry. I would have I would have watched that because I was sitting around with the TV off, not knowing what to do. Well, I appreciate everybody's tuned in. Like I said, I'm Curtis Lee, and this is the Gen X Files. So that was the UFO information I had. Like I said, that new UFO dump that came out looked like I said, there was 19 videos. Two of the more interesting ones I've done is shorts, and I've only watched like 3 or 4 of the videos, so I'm gonna go through and see what else there is. But then that was some of the more interesting information that I found out. Like I said, they tied some of the more recent occurrences back to some of these reports from World War II because they were similar. So I thought that was interesting. Well, you made it just in time for the first song, Joe Daisy. I hope you had a good week. thanks for tuning in. Well, hopefully Ben will pop over here. I didn't mean to ditch his live stream. I didn't know he was doing one, but I had everything turned off. So about 8 o'clock, I realized there wasn't nothing I wanted to watch on YouTube. So I just turned the TV and the computer and everything off and just sit there and eat something, pet the cats. Well, let me play this first song before my stereo cuts off here like it usually does. I played this one a week or two ago, and I like the song, so I think I'm going to play it again. Anyway, it's called Mortals featuring Laura Brehm, B-R-E-H-M. Apologize for saying her name wrong. So let's listen to this and give me a chance to get caught up here, and then we'll get into the next thing, which is Bigfoot. Thank everybody for tuning in. Yeah, I like this one too. Hello, Kenneth Russell. Good to see you. Oh, wow. That's a shame. Yeah, I saw where he passed away last year. That was sad. Yeah, he seemed like he was a pretty good fella. Well, thank you for tuning in, Kenneth. Appreciate you being here. Oh, does Coast to Coast use it? Well, that's funny. I'm getting ready to do a piece I got from him. It is I think this is a remix, Joe Daisy. I saw the original version one too. I actually like this one better. that's cool. I didn't know this was a coast to coast song. It's 8 on there. Yeah, this is a if you look in the description for the video, it has which version it is. I do think this is a remix version. I saw the other version of it. I actually like this one better. I like the music part of it better. Yeah, I think it's a mashup of two different songs. if I read the thing correctly. Like I said, the description's in the but the like I said, the main tune "Mortals," I like that. I thought it'd be good for this show. That's cool that it comes from coast to coast. I didn't know that. That's funny because the next piece I was gonna read you guys actually 2004. Oh, okay. Well, let me read you this next piece then, because I actually got the original story from coast to coast. So I'm gonna read you y'all. I'm gonna read you what they had on their site about it, and I'm gonna read you a little write up that I had AI do on it to kind of summarize it. It says a man on the early morning drive in Connecticut says that he got an up close look at a Sasquatch across the road in front of his car. And the remarkable sighting reported to the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization occurred shortly before 2 a.m. on July 5th, as witness Kevin Klimas was returning home from a friend's cabin in the community of Voluntown near the Pachaug State Forest. And slowly driving down a dark road in the middle of the woods, he was suddenly forced to slam on the brakes to avoid hitting this thing that emerged from the forest. And with the vehicle stopped, Kilmus clearly observed a bipedal creature standing approximately 8 feet tall, swiftly crossing the road. And the monstrous figure, he said, sported coarse, matted, and greasy-looking long brown hair covering every part of its body I could see. Similar to other suspected Sasquatch reports, Kilmus noted that the creature had a slightly conical head and inordinately long arms that reached to just above its knees. Sounds like my arms. That's why I tell you I'm Bigfoot, because I've got like really goofily long arms that are probably longer than most people should be. I'm like all torso and no legs. And it says the mystified motorist marveled that the sizable figure crossed the road in a mere 3 steps, moving like on mission, and vanished into the woods without acknowledging the car that had just stopped to avoid it. And it says, I was dumbstruck, Kilmus mused, indicating that it took him around a minute to regain control of his faculties and get his car moving again. Looking back on the sighting, the man was doubtless about what he had seen. Make no mistake, this was not a bear, he declared. This was a cryptid. I am no longer a skeptic. I'm certain of that. So apparently this guy was a non-believer. So, yeah, if you've got a non-believer reporting stuff, like I said, I've got an actual write-up that I had the AI do on this, and we'll go through what it said too. But let me get back here to the chat a minute and get caught up. Yeah, that's why I joke about. I mean, that's I believe that, and some of my cousins believe that. Is that when we die, our ancestors go up to the top of the mountain, we haunt the woods, and we spend the rest of eternity scaring people camping and hiking in the woods. That's our job. So I'm like a shadow man in training. Okay. Well, I mean, it says that it's part of it. I think, like I said, I think it's a combination of 2 different songs, and I think it says something about being a remix. I'll look at it and see. Yeah, I might be big. I think I'm Bigfoot's cousin, or Bigfoot's my cousin, whichever way you want to look at it. Or he's my uncle, or I might be his uncle. That's the joke. That's the joke in the tribe. Everybody in the tribe, I seem to be related to everybody, and I'm not rolling the Monica tribe, but a lot of my cousins are. But that's the joke in the tribe is that I'm my own uncle. So let me read you this AI. So yeah, that was from July 5th. That was a Bigfoot report that was recent. So I thought that was interesting. Like I said, I found it on Coast to Coast. They apparently have a YouTube channel, which I'm going to have to check out. It might be good for clips and stuff. It said that's what they actually use the channel for. I don't think they put the whole broadcast on there. I think they just use it for clips and stuff. Because I guess it'd be hard on a radio show to have. Well, unless they film them. I don't think they film them, though. I think they're just a radio show. But let me read you what the AI said about this sighting. and then we'll be done with that part, and then we'll listen to another song, and then I'll do the current events part, which is how to set your own trap. All right, it says the Connecticut road crosser Voluntown sighting. I'm sorry if I sound all congested. The air quality here the last couple of days has been terrible. It's not bad tonight, but last couple of nights days have been so smoky you couldn't see nothing out here hardly. So I'm a little stopped up. Anyway, it says this sighting it says the Connecticut road crosser sighting. It says this sighting has been generating a lot of buzz because it breaks the stereotype of Bigfoot only being spotted in the Pacific Northwest. We know that there's a bunch of sightings in Ohio, so it doesn't usually, the AI is a little bit dumb on this one because there's Bigfoot sightings all over the place. And it says New England has massive pockets of dead ancient woods, and this encounter was about as close range as it gets. This is the witness, Kevin Klimas. This is the time and location, July 5th, 2026, 1:45 a.m. Klimas was driving home from a friend's cabin near the Pachaug State Forest in Voluntown, Connecticut. He was traveling down a heavily canopy-covered, pitch-black, dirt-paved transition road. This is the near miss. Klimas was driving at a moderate speed due to the darkness when a massive figure suddenly stepped out from the right tree line in his headlights, and he had to slam on his brakes to avoid a direct collision coming to a halt just feet away from it. Klimas reported the creature was an 8-foot tall, incredibly broad bipedal hominid, completely covered in dark, shaggy hair. And this is the not a bear clarification. Anticipating skeptics, Klimas explicitly stated to investigators that he is highly familiar with the New England wildlife. He noted that the creature's gait was distinctly human-like but incredibly heavy, moving with a fluid, long-strided walk rather than the clunky rolling lumber of a black bear on its hind legs. And the creature didn't panic, look directly at the car, or display aggression. It simply maintained his stride, crossed the 2-lane road in about 2 or 3 massive steps, and vanished silently into the thick undergrowth on the left side. And the BFRO is currently looking into whether there may have been any localized reports of strange vocalizations of broken tree structures, which are common in regional Sasquatch activity in the Pachaug area over the spring. So, but that still kind of goes back to my Trouble times, good to see you. I don't know what play flashlight is, but you can use flashlights to ghost hunt and hunt for Bigfoot. So I don't know how much they'd be good for aliens. Coast to Coast had me scared a lot of nights. Well, yeah, if you're sitting alone by yourself listening to some of the creepy stuff Art and people would talk about, I imagine that would be scary. I imagine that would be scary. So all this time, all these reports, we still don't have no ghost Bigfoot video. So if somebody gets a Bigfoot video out there, I'd appreciate it. Send it to me. I'll put it on the air. We can't seem to get no good Bigfoot footage. Everybody can tell us they saw it, but can't nobody take a picture of it or video it for some reason. Yeah, the smoke's gnarly. The smoke's gnarly here. It's been nasty. I even got Trump complaining about it and blaming Canada because they didn't clean up a brush or something. Yeah. Anyway, it's so here we are. It's climate change is real. Climate change is a thing. That's why we have all these crazy fires and stuff. Yeah, that would freak me out. That would freak me out too, Joe Daisy. I don't think I would like sitting in a. I would have a hard time listening to this show like Orbs if I was sitting. Of course, I sit here alone and like look at creepy stuff. I got my cat, so I guess that's why it wouldn't bother me. So the next thing I'm going to talk about, let me play. So the next piece of music isn't very long. The next piece of music actually goes with the next thing I'm going to talk about. And it's probably a good thing I don't have a whole bunch of good people watching tonight because they probably all get mad at me anyway, what I'm going to talk about. But we're going to talk about President Trump's speech the other night. Well, I'm not going to talk about the speech. I'm going to talk about the papers that they released after the speech. But let me play this next piece of music first, and then we'll get into that. And like I said, the next piece of music actually kind of goes along with what we're going to talk about. I just thought it'd be fun. So the next piece is called From Russia with Love. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Like I said, we're going to talk about some news here. We'll let this little song play here. Get our 1960s spy vibe going on. Pretend it's 1965, we're going back and watching an old spy movie, like the KGB. Whoops. Rocks up over. Because we're going to get into some spy stuff tonight. Because us and the Russians spying on each other has never stopped. I know that's a good idea. Take a dog to work with you, yeah. He'll at least alert you if there's something there. Yeah, he'll at least alert you if there's something there. Alright, the next thing up I'm going to talk about here. You know, all us Gen Xers grew up thinking the Russians were going to blow us up at any moment, have us hiding under the desk and stuff. What if the Russian kids had to do that? All right, well, the next story kind of harkens back to the Cold War. Like I said, I'm not going to talk a whole. Well, I'll mention President Trump's speech. So the important thing about President Trump's speech the other night was, like those things, bro. Talking about the smoke smelling like tires and electric wiring, which is frightening. Like this thing. Yeah, like I said, I know there's a warehouse. Not only do we have the Canadian wildfire smoke, and whatever it's happened to burning up. We've also got this warehouse fire over here in Parkersburg, West Virginia. So I can't imagine that's not blowing across the mountain too. So yeah, we got a mixed bag of stuff. So yeah, all us Gen Xers grew up being taught to hide under a desk and think the Russians were going to blow us up at any moment. And I guess they taught the Russian kids the same thing. That's a shame too. So here we are still all trying to mess with each other and spy on each other. But the interesting thing I thought about President Trump's speech the other night was that pretty much everything he said in it, the paperwork that he released says the exact opposite. So yeah, he released. So about the only thing he wasn't lying about was that there were foreign governments that meddled in the 2020 election, but they meddled to help him, not hurt him. So he said the exact. So I think John Ratcliffe screwed him over because the documents that they put out say the exact opposite of what Trump said during his speech, and everybody was pointing that out like right after he got off the air. They're like, this says the opposite. But anyway, let me read this to you guys because like I said, I just found this fascinating. This was like it's like, okay, come up there and say something, but it's the exact opposite of what it actually is. It just seems crazy to me. And so I asked the AI, I said, am I crazy, or did President Trump say the exact opposite of everything that all the documents he released said? And he said, and it says the documents that you are referring to is part of a highly publicized batch of newly declassified files in mid-July 2026. It says the release directly ties back to intelligence community assessment ICA originally compiled by the National Intelligence Council regarding foreign influence in the 2020 and 2024 presidential elections. And I also put links to all this information in the description, so anybody watching it wants to go down and look at this can. And for the UFO stuff, and I think for the Bigfoot thing too. It says your interpretation of the document's core content is entirely correct. Here's the exact content and context of the document you saw and why it contradicts the narrative of the speech. The paper says the opposite of what he said. It's crazy. So this is why I said the title of one part of this, how to set your own trap, because he just set his own trap. He released information that proved he was guilty and the Russians are guilty of screwing around in the 2020 election, and it was to help Joe Biden. This doesn't incriminate Joe Biden, it incriminates Trump. It talks about people in the administration pushing Russian narratives. So anyway, let me read. It says the core content of the document. The specific declassified National Intelligence Council document from that era explicitly states that Russia's primary goal was to sabotage Joe Biden's candidacy in order to pave the way for a Donald Trump victory. That's what the paper says. It says they were targeting Joe Biden. So that's what's crazy about Trump getting all up in this. Maybe the people that were on him just said, okay, well, you insist that there's foreign interference. Well, here it is, except they interfered to help you. This is the document states their aim is to defeat the former vice president, Joe Biden, and ensure the president's victory, meaning Trump. The intelligence files outline that Russia was actively the most aggressive foreign actor trying to penetrate or influence American election spaces. And to do this, they heavily amplified narratives targeting Biden, specifically weaponizing and laundering unverified allegations regarding his son Hunter Biden and the Ukrainian energy firm Burisma through U.S. media organizations, prominent individuals, and social media networks. And it says the infrastructure, out of all foreign adversaries tracked in the document's metrics, including China and Iran, only Russia was officially categorized by the intelligence community as having actively engaged in targeting, accessing, or manipulating election processes or election-related systems. The papers that Trump put out after his speech, the papers that they handed that knucklehead and they put on the White House website incriminate him in his last administration. I guess because none of them were in his last administration, they didn't care. Somehow I've known that all. Like the attack on Hunter Biden. It was bogus what they did to Hunter. Yeah, they dogged him for no reason. And he was obviously having enough trouble if he was having all these problems with drugs and all this other stuff. But I'm glad he got through it. And he lost his brother. I'm sure losing his brother didn't help him any. And they're both veterans as far as I know. And this is the context. Why was it brought up in the speech? And I said, in his recent speech, Trump utilized this newly unsealed batch of documents to support his claims of foreign meddling and to advocate for sweeping changes to election laws. However, his focus was selectively placed on a completely different part of the file, China. The minority view on China. The consensus of the intelligence community in the report was that China considered, but ultimately did not deploy a major influence operation to sway the election, because Beijing did not view either candidate as advantageous enough to risk getting caught meddling. Didn't help them either way, so they didn't mess with it. However, the document contains a specific minority view dissent from the National Intelligence Officer for cyber issues who argued that China did take subtle steps via social media to undermine Trump because they preferred a more predictable establishment candidate. And this was a selective pivot. In the speech, Trump emphasized this specific minority dissent regarding China to claim that deep state was actively covering up the Chinese meddling. The irony of the document release is that while the speech was intended to highlight foreign interference directed against Trump via China, the actual declassified text of the National Intelligence Council report heavily documents a systematic aggressive effort by Russia designed to help Trump by possibly damaging Joe Biden. And essentially, the document confirms that Russia viewed a Biden presidency as a counter to criminal interest and used a whole government disinformation approach to counter it, and the exact opposite of the implications in the speech. So let me get back to the chat here. I think it might just be you and me, Joe Daisy. And if there's anybody else watching, I appreciate everybody watching. Thank y'all for tuning in. Yeah, so Trump. So the papers that they gave Trump. So yeah, there's proof that there was election interference, and it was election interference by Russia on behalf of Trump. So it sounds like it's the Republicans that we need to secure the elections from. If you actually read into what happened, Hunter just won a lawsuit. He also talked about the loss of his brother and his mom before that. Yeah, because they were little kids when they lost their mom. That had to be tough on them. You know, Jill's their stepmom. He talked about how great his dad was, even through the hardest. Yeah, Lindsey Graham, up until he got all up Trump's butt, said that Joe Biden was like one of the nicest men he'd ever known. Yeah, I think we got this. Well, like I said, I can't believe that he released. So yeah, all the information he released implicated him. It didn't exonerate him. That's the information that Jack Smith had. He was going to charge him with. So all Trump did was just declassify and release all the information that the court was going to use to charge him with insurrection or whatever. Well, let me read this last part of this, and that'll probably be it for the stream. That's all I've got. Like I said, so this is literally how to make your. So that's why I put make your own trap in the comments, because that's what he did. This is how to set your own trap. He released the information that made it look like he was guilty, and I said, whoever released that after knowing what his speech was is not on the side, and I find that funny. And it says that is a wild piece of political irony. When you look at the mechanics of how these document dumps happen, it usually comes down to a massive institutional inertia versus a political team's media strategy. And the National Intelligence Council and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence work on their own bureaucratic declassification timelines. They don't usually pause its scheduled legally required release just because the speech is happening, which leads to these exact kinds of awkward, conflicting data drops where the official record completely undercuts the live mic narrative. And it makes for an incredible coverage material day. It says you have the ultimate contrast, a speech claiming one thing on stage while a freshly unsealed government document sitting on a press desk down the street proves the exact opposite about the actual target of the meddling. and it said at the end of the thing it wasn't sure how that happened, and I wrote Ratcliffe. John Ratcliffe is how that happened. And it says, oh, that connects the dots perfectly. John Ratcliffe is the exact link between Trump's speech, the declassified documents, and the minority view on China. Here's the context on Ratcliffe's role in this whole narrative. The DNI backstory. Back when the 2020 intelligence assessment was being finalized, Ratcliffe was serving as Trump's director of national intelligence, the DNI, and he famously refused to sign off on the initial consensus from the career intelligence analysts. In the interventions, an internal intelligence ombudsman report later revealed that Ratcliffe strongly disagreed with the career analyst line that China didn't try to interfere. He insisted they were missing China's influence, that Beijing was actively working to hurt Trump. And that exact pushback from Ratcliffe is what created the minority view section in the document. In the very section Trump highlighted in his speech to argue a deep state cover-up. It says, where is he now? Ratcliffe actually stayed in the inner circle and is currently serving as the director of the CIA. Talk about the deep state. This is he has been making news over the last week for a completely different reason. At a defense summit in Pennsylvania, he made waves by revealing declassified CIA metrics on drone warfare stating that due to Ukraine's use of advanced AI-powered drones, the average life expectancy of a new Russian recruit hitting the front lines has dropped to just 20 to 30 minutes. So between his historical election assessments being used on the campaign trail and his active briefings on the war, Ratcliffe is right in the center of the current news cycle. So, Ratcliffe. Yeah, Trump shouldn't have talked about John McCain. John McCain was a good man. So anyway, that was my revelation about Trumpy's speech the other night, was that all the information he released was the information that Jack Smith was going to use to indict him. So he didn't do nothing but prove he was guilty, because it even says in the documents that he was parroting the same talking points that the Russians were. He incriminated himself. Somebody wants to get away from him in the administration and pretty much in the Republican Party. They should take the chance, because, like I said, he gave himself up. Well, I appreciate everybody that tuned in. Trump's name needs to show. Yeah, he's getting wacky, and he gets himself in more trouble every time that he says anything. So here's another thing. Speaking of, so on the community page, I think I tagged Bubba in it. There's a link that goes to an article or a video about documents from the FBI coming out where they were training FBI agents to go through the Epstein files and redact Trump's name. Not redact victims' names, redact Trump's name. Oh, Lord. We get somebody blocked already? All right. Well, anyway, that was the show. So that's what I had, Joe Daisy. Looks like I lost everybody at the end, but that's okay. That last segment was just for you anyway. He gonna post zero. He gonna post binary code. Is that SOS? ... Yeah, he is an attorney's nightmare. Like most of the people who represented him have lost their licenses. The people that didn't get away from him. Well, anyway, like I said, this last part was basically for you, Joe Daisy. I figured you would appreciate that. Well, like I said, I'm going to sign off for the night. That's the end of the show. I appreciate you being here, Joe Daisy. And I don't know what Yeshu or Yob something or. Yeah, that was that part was for you. I knew I'd lose everybody by then. So, or if anybody was coming on, they would just have to deal with it. So, well, if you talk to Ben, tell him to come watch that last part about Trump and his screw up. Like I said, the information they put out implicates Trump. All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show, and have a good night. And I'll see y'all Thursday night for Appalachia After Dark. Have a good weekend. Thank you, Joe.